Throughout history, men thrived in tribes and brotherhoods. But today, we operate through a different ideal, the lone wolf. You do it all, you trust no one, you need no one. It's the modern-day masculine ideal, glorified by Hollywood, celebrated in business culture, and you've bought into it. Do you know what they call a lone wolf in the wild? Prey. Because a wolf separated from its pack doesn't become stronger, it becomes vulnerable. And just like that lone wolf, your isolation has come at a price. It's the disconnected marriage despite regular date nights, the business that no longer lights you up despite hitting all your targets. And it's that lying in bed at 2 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling. You see, you're doing everything right on paper, but something's missing. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why 99% of high-performing men plateau despite working harder every year, and the exact shift the top 1% make to break through. After coaching and working with over 1,300 highly successful men, from 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs to industry leaders, I discovered something that even surprised me. The number one factor separating those who plateau from those who continually level up isn't motivation, productivity hacks, or even hustle. It's this. The lone wolf mindset that built your initial success is exactly what's blocking your next evolution. Now, as the founder of Rising Kings, where I help men save their marriages, reignite their inner fire, and operate with more purpose and passion, I've seen this pattern repeatedly. A man builds something impressive alone, hits a ceiling, works harder, but ends up with the same results. And I'm not just referring to business stagnation. It's marriages suddenly ending. It's health crises coming out of nowhere. And it's waking up at 45 realizing you've built a life that looks good to others, but feels empty to you. Between where you are now and where you could be lies what I call the valley of death. It's the gap between your current reality and your true potential that seems impossible to cross alone. Now think of success and fulfillment like climbing Mount Everest. From base camp, the solo climber sees only the path directly ahead. Now he can push harder, move faster, but eventually hits a physical ceiling, and there are some peaks you simply cannot summit alone. Now the 1%, they know when to rope up with the right team, when to use oxygen, when to listen to Sherpas who've made the journey countless times before. They see the entire mountain. And here's the brutal truth most successful men refuse to accept. Your potential is capped by the 5 men you spend the most time with. If you choose wrong, you'll end up working twice as hard for half the results. And that's where having the right brotherhood comes in. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this is another motivational rally cry, let me be clear. I'm not talking about networking events and drinking buddies. I'm not talking about weekend retreats and drum circles. What most men miss is that there's a profound difference between social groups and a brotherhood. Real brotherhood, the kind that forged Spartans, Vikings, and elite military units, isn't built on comfort. It's built on challenge. And that's exactly why I created Rising Kings, to provide what I couldn't find. Because to think, feel, and act like the top 1%, you need to surround yourself with the top 1%. Real strength isn't going it alone. Real strength is being secure enough to leverage the strength of others. Because success isn't about being the strongest wolf. It's about running with the strongest pack. And your business, your marriage, your health, they're all operating on the same principle right now. Men who are successful but unfulfilled. They're fit but they're unhealthy. They're present but they're disconnected. And I know this because I lived it. I remember priding myself on being the lone wolf, thinking anything that was going to get done properly had to get done by me, until I hit a ceiling. I was working longer hours, I was more productive than ever, but the results started going backwards. My marriage was distant and I was starting to feel burnt out. That's when I realized I couldn't do this alone. And so I started connecting with men who were on a similar journey and held high standards. And that's when Rising Kings was born. And after studying high performance groups across history and implementing these principles with hundreds of men, I created the Brotherhood Blueprint with 5 critical pillars. These are the same used by Spartans, Vikings, Navy SEALs, and other elite brotherhoods throughout history. The first pillar is elevated standards. The men around you must operate at a level that naturally pulls you up. Average environment equals average results. Elite environment equals elite results. The second pillar is structured accountability. Not just talk, but real plans that make sure you do what you say, even when you don't feel like it. Navy SEALs engineer environments and team structures that make success inevitable through mutual accountability. Like, think of accountability like the banks of a powerful river. Without them, water disperses, like losing power and direction. But with strong banks, that same water gets powerful enough to cut through mountains. And then the third pillar is what we call blind spot elimination. You can't see what you can't see, period. And the Vikings got this right. Each fighter watched the side of his brother that they couldn't see. And in battle, you stayed alive because your brother watched what you couldn't. The right brothers provide the mirror you need, not the validation you want. And then the fourth pillar is strategic shortcuts. This is where you get direct access to men who've already solved your exact challenges. Like, why would you spend 5 years figuring something out when someone can show you in 5 minutes? You see, most men try to hack their way through the jungle with a machete, exhausting themselves, clearing a new path. But the wise man, he finds someone who's already made this journey, and he's got the map of the clearest paths and the hidden dangers to get you there faster and more effectively. And then the fifth and final pillar is the collective momentum. You see, true brotherhood doesn't just add to your potential, it multiplies it. What would take you 10 years alone can be accomplished in 1 year with the right pack. And here's what it looks like in real life. Take Reese, like a rising king's brother, $1.2 million business, but he's working 70-hour weeks. He's fit, but he's joyless, and he feels like life is on autopilot. Now, the thing is, he didn't need another coach. He needed men who wouldn't let him lie to himself. And within 90 days of a new standard, he cut his hours by a third, his revenue went up by 19%, and he had more time for surfing and loving life again. And then another brother, Kevin, like 3 years stuck at the same revenue despite trying every tactic. What he needed was perspective, the kind only found with men who wouldn't let blind spots slide. And within 60 days, we'd unpacked almost all of his blind spots. And 6 months later, his revenue was up by 29% and he'd been able to cut back working hours. And this is what the 1% know, brother. Picture waking up with a clear mind, energized, operating with purpose, right? You head into the day with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're not just supported, you're challenged. You have a brotherhood of men who won't accept your excuses, but will never let you fall. And this is what happens inside a real brotherhood. When a man upgrades his environment, everything changes according to the brotherhood blueprint. Because it's not about what you do, it's about who you're becoming. So here's something you can do right now. Write down the 3 men who most influence your standards. Are they living a life you aspire to, or one you've quietly settled for? Now, this specific exercise is going to reveal more about your future than any complex planning session, because the gap between where you are and where you could be isn't a knowledge gap, it's an environment gap. And that gap widens every day you stay stuck in the wrong game. And if you're done doing this alone, I highly recommend you jump into my upcoming bootcamp. Details below, and I'll introduce you to men who will not let you play small. Now, the thing is, men join us to fix one area, but they end up unlocking everything. Because when you raise your standard, everything rises with it. But even high performers are often operating at just 60% of their true potential. And that missing 40%, it's costing them millions in results, in fulfillment and impact. And if you want to uncover what's holding you back from your actual highest potential, I break it down in the next video right here.